Good morning, everyone. Thomas Fleming here. Well, I've got two plans for talking about the month. One's a little more complicated and I'm still working on it, so I just want to cover the basics on Christmas. It's a special time of year. There are two times of the year you're going to get people to go to church: Christmas and Easter. More on Easter, though, because without Christmas, we wouldn't have Easter. But without Easter, we wouldn't have salvation. They're both important. So this time of year, you're going to start getting the naysayers. Isn't Christian a pagan religion? Isn't Christianity a pagan religion because it celebrates Christmas on a pagan holiday? You can take anything, Satan's good at this, and destroy it. You can take anything and come up with an alternative. After the flood, God said to give you a sign of our new covenant, that I won't destroy man this way again and that I'm here for you. He gave us a rainbow. Well, now that rainbow has another meaning, opposite of what Christianity would want. So you see how Satan works? And of course, he does the same thing with Christmas. But we're going to look at some of the traditions of Christmas just briefly. And then I want to read a little bit out of the Bible. It's important that we know what we're doing today is not pagan. He told Peter that if you want to eat meat offered to idols, as long as you're not eating it during the idol ceremony where they would normally eat it, if you're just eating it because it's leftovers or whatever, it's no big deal. God created it. However, if it causes somebody to stumble, don't eat it. Well, the same thing is with Christmas. We got to understand, first off, Christmas, December 25th, is not the actual birth of Christ. We don't know anything about Christ, really. We have very little. We have very little about his life growing up. We have a lot of information about his ministry when he became 30, but we don't know anything about that. And why 30? Because that's the age you had to be a priest. And he's our high priest. But why do we celebrate it on December 25th? Well, one, they don't know, so they just picked a date. This wasn't picked in the first century. This was later on. They didn't celebrate births in the time of Jesus. It wasn't important. It's what you do with your life that's important. But anyhow, somebody decided to come up with a day. The problem was they were still persecuting Christians. If you had a big get-together and they found out about it, the guards found out about it, they'd round everybody up. So they couldn't do it. If they wanted to get together, that's where the little fish symbol came in. That would be your Christian symbol to say there's something going on for us. Shh, keep it quiet. Well, Christmas is the same way. Why did they pick December 25th? Because it's right around the winter solstice. And there's a couple of pagan deities that they honored and celebrated. So anyhow, by hiding the birth of Jesus during their celebrations, they didn't know that you weren't celebrating for them. So that's the reason that they did it. So it's associated with the pagan holiday only in the fact that they were hiding it, because they would be killed, arrested and killed. That's a good enough reason. Now, we look at some of the other stuff. Yeah, a lot of the things that went on back then were done for pagans. If you don't do something that pagans do for the pagan reason, are you still a pagan? Let's go ahead and push this to the ultimate limit. They used to sacrifice babies. So are babies evil because they were sacrificed by pagans? Of course not. So don't stretch this all out. Satan wants to muddy the waters. And he's doing a good job. But just, if they're naysayers, just ignore them. Don't worry about them. Celebrate Christmas. But do it right. Why do we celebrate Christmas? It's the birth of our Savior. That's why we celebrate. Why do we give each other gifts? Why do we have Santa Claus? Well, they didn't have big business back then, but they had business. And a lot of these things were invented by businesses to help promote sales, to make money. I grew up learning about Santa Claus, and I'm not dead weight, I'm not destroyed, but it would have been better off if I'd have known the truth. Yes, there was a individual called Saint Nick, and he would go around giving presents to people. Well, he's long and gone, but that's the original origin most people think of Santa Claus. I would tell your kids that. Not that some fat jolly guy is going to climb down the chimney of every house. Because you start off with a lie, you're going to have to defend that lie. Then you're going to get the question like, what if they live in an apartment and don't have a chimney? What if they live in a hut? Do they come down igloos? So you're going to have to defend it. Once you start with a lie, and then the questions come up, you're going to have to defend it. Kids are smarter than you think they are. And they can accept pretty much anything. I mean, it's not time to talk to birds and the bees at this time, but certainly telling them about the origins of Santa Claus. And that it's the time that we're supposed to love God, love Jesus, and love our family and friends. That's why we celebrate. If you want to give out gifts, you can. They should be modest and preferably homemade. Am I hearing rain again? I've got blue sky above me. It can't rain. It's not blue. It's above the fog, it's blue sky. I'm hearing stuff fall. Anyhow, staying on target, we should do modest gifts. Remember, the first Christmas was a very modest Christmas. And the nativity scenes, you want to put them up, fine. Just be aware that the wise guys, and I like to call them wise guys, didn't show up until Jesus was a year or two. The star that would have directed them there would have directed them to their birth, but they're a long ways away. Probably coming from Iran, Persia. Go, why there? Remember where the Jews were scattered, where Nebuchadnezzar was king of Babylon. That's where they were taken. That's where Daniel was taken, and he was put in the lion's den. They would have told them about their Jewish heritage. And when they were told they could come back, most of them didn't. They'd been there for 70 years. They were acclimated. They didn't want to come back. So their priests, their wise men, would have been there, and they weren't astrologers. They were, what's the term? I don't want to say astrophysicists, but they were into the stars and their meanings, but they weren't astrologers. See, again, Satan has taken something that was useful and distorted it. They knew that there was a king star, and that when it was in a certain place, that meant that there was going to be a birth of a king in Israel. That's why they came. And this was a prominent star. But they still didn't know where to go. They went to Herod and asked him, and he didn't know. So he asked his wise men, and they told him Bethlehem. So by the time they got there, it was late. And they brought things of value to help Jesus get his ministry started. His family had to take care of him for 30 years. He did have a job as a carpenter. Did he work with wood or with stone? We're not really sure. Nobody can bring anything to us and says, here, this was made by Jesus. For the same reason, we don't really know when he was born. We don't really know where he was born. All this stuff has been convoluted, and people have assigned spots and said, well, this is where he was born, and I'm going to build a temple over it and destroy it so you can't see the way it originally looked. I have no wish to see again any of these things in Jerusalem. I'd prefer to stay out of Jerusalem, frankly, for looking at historical things. We're going to see the temple built eventually. They're ready. They just need somebody to settle the dispute between the Shiites and the Jews. The Sunnis and the Jews are fine. They're in the Abraham Accord. They need the Antichrist. When he starts negotiating peace on the Temple Mount, then you miss the rapture because we're not supposed to be here. Okay, getting back, I see I'm doing rabbit holes again. Getting back to Christmas. So, Christmas was created to protect Christians so they could celebrate. And again, this was not done in the first century. There's debates on when it was first practiced, but it would have been probably the 3rd century on, maybe the end of the 2nd century. They really don't know. A lot of the documentation, especially even the full manuscripts of the Bible, were destroyed by the evil emperor of Rome at the time. It wasn't until Constantine came along that they were sort of united. Anyhow, early history was destroyed so much that we don't really know. We have the pieces of the Bible put back together because people kept pieces of it, but they never found a full, complete manuscript. Okay, back to Christmas. More than likely, he was conceived in the spring and born in the fall, but not Christmas. There wouldn't have been any feasts anyway. I mean, the closest feast would have been Hanukkah, and that's not in the Bible directly. That's in the other books that cover that particular miracle, but it's not in the Bible. See, there's so much of this that's, you got to let some of this stuff go. If people say this is when something's going to happen, fine, let them have that belief. And when it goes, don't say, see, I told you so, or chide them. They're trying. I had a couple of people on my list that you guys have commented back. Yeah, they may be wrong on some of the predictions. It's prophecy. The only way to understand prophecy is for God to explain it. Okay, I want to read a little bit of the Bible story for you out of Matthew. If you go to Matthew chapter 1, verse 1, you get the genealogy. Now, we're going to talk about that in a little bit because I'm going to read the commentary. There are 2 genealogies in the Bible. The other genealogy is not in chapter 1. It's in Luke chapter 3. Yeah. This Bible is out here and wet, and it's sticky. Yeah, Luke chapter 3, verse 23 is the other. So, one genealogy is of Mary, and one is of John or Joseph. You see, Jesus had to inherit the proper genealogy to be the high priest. But it goes through John. I keep saying John. Joseph! I was reading John earlier today, so it's in my head. The genealogy of Joseph will take him back to Matthew, the son of Levi. So it takes him through the priestly order. Mary's has a different order, and he wouldn't be high priest through Mary. And it shows a little bit, we're going to read in the commentary, it shows a little bit about God when we read the commentary. Okay, well, I'm going to start over now in verse 18 of Matthew chapter 1. Now the birth of Jesus Christ was as follows. After his mother Mary was betrothed to Joseph, betrothal back then, engagement, whatever you want to call it, is not the same as it is today. Today it's just sort of a, yeah, maybe we're getting married, but it's not a legal binding agreement. Back then, they were effectively legally married at the betrothal. And if you want to see what this is like, watch the movie Before the Wrath. Okay, it's a really good movie, narrated by Kevin Sorbo, and he's done a bunch of other Christian works. They're releasing a new movie, I think, in January. Anytime you can find a movie with him in it, it's going to be very good. Kevin Sorbo, who used to be Hercules, but I think all that bodybuilding almost killed him, and eventually he found his way to Jesus. So now he's a good Christian, and he really can't work in Hollywood anymore, so he does Christian films. And I've met him a number of times. He's a really nice guy. So anyhow, Before the Wrath, check it out. There's a trailer on YouTube, but I think you have to pay for it on maybe Amazon, one of the other sites. It's not very expensive, but it's well worth it. And it's got some narration in it. I think I talked about it in my one of Talking Who I watch on YouTube. There's some pastors in there that you're going to recognize from my list. But it's a very good movie explaining to us about the times of Jesus and the genealogy and how they had a wedding back then. And the only problem I have with it is a little bit of Hollywood thrown in, that the rapture is going to lead to a wedding feast. Well, eventually it will, and that's the only problem. Don't go thinking that you're going to go from the rapture to a wedding feast. We're going to be going to work. We got to finish the tribulation and get through the 1,000 years, get a new heaven and earth, a new Jerusalem, and then there's a wedding feast. When all Christians of whatever nationality, whatever religion, if you're a Christian, there's going to be a wedding feast, and we're all invited. But that's at the end. That's the only problem. They really couldn't go into all the detail because the movie would have been too long. So there is a wedding feast, but it's not immediate. Okay. And his mother Mary was betrothed to Joseph, which made it legal. Before they came together, she was found with child of the Holy Spirit. Now we know the thing, that the angel came down and talked to her, and it's covered in the other Gospels as well. This kind of summarizes here a lot of this, so we're just going to go through that. Then Joseph, her husband, being a just man. God knows how to pick husbands. If you're young looking for a husband, don't go pick one yourself without God's help. Okay. Being a just man and not wanting to make her a public example. Public example, stoning to death would have been the result. Was minded to put her away secretly. But while he thought about these things, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, see how he's related? Do not be afraid to take Mary for your wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit, and she will bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, and he shall save his people from their sins. And I'm just going to read this a little bit here just so you can see how God likes to tie things in. So this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord through the prophet, saying, Behold, a virgin shall be with child and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, God with us, which is translated God with us. And Joseph, being aroused from sleep, did as the angel of the Lord commanded, and he took him his wife, and did not know her until she brought forth her first son, and he was named Jesus. Now, I'm just going to read a little bit into the second one because it talks about the wise guys. Yeah, I know. And Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king. Behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who was born King of the Jews? So right there, he's already born. Understand that. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he inquired to him where the child or where Christ was to be born. And they said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea. For thus it is written by the prophet, But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people of Israel. Well, you know the deal. The plot to then kill baby Jesus. And Herod says, and this is after the wise men have visited and left by a different route. Herod says, kill all the babies up to 2 years old, because that tells you there's a time lapse of up to 2 years. So the wise guys didn't get there right in the beginning. And I continue to use wise guys. God has a sense of humor. We have one. And there's humor all throughout the Bible, but it's lost in the English translation, unfortunately. Okay. I want to look at the commentary. This is the God isn't looking for for perfect people. Perfect people. Say that 100 times. Starting here. Many families have one person they don't talk about much. Some were among the line, some relative embarrassed everyone else, or developed a shady reputation. Well, Jesus surely understood that because his own genealogy included 4 women of questionable character. I'm going to see what that means, but you can figure that out. The first was Tamar, Matthew 1:3, who got pregnant with twins by her father-in-law, Genesis 38. The second woman was Rahab. That's Matthew 1:5. Again, that's the Matthew references are in the genealogy line. The earlier references are the Old Testament, where we have the story. Was Rahab, Matthew 1:5, whose occupation was listed as harlot, Joshua 2:1. The third woman was Ruth, Matthew 1:5, a foreigner who moved to Israel with her mother-in-law. That's Ruth 1:16 and 17. And the fourth was Bathsheba, Matthew 1:6, the mistress of King David, where he sinned. And that's in 2 Samuel 11. Matthew refers to her as her who had been the wife of Uriah. You remember where David really lost it here. He sent Uriah out into battle to be killed so he could take Bathsheba. So even our beloved patriarchs have human issues. So if you have a human issue, deal with it with God. Jesus forgives us of these. I heard something over there, but I don't know what it was. Continuing on, while it may seem strange to find women of these reputation in Jesus' family tree, it also serves as a good reminder that God can use anyone who responds to him and who is willing to be used by him. Jesus calls everybody. He went to the woman at the well. He drew in the dirt that the one brought to him in adultery. He's very forgiving. But he sent the woman away saying, I don't condemn you either. Go and sin no more. Actually, the Bible is filled with people, men and women, who might seem unworthy to serve God at first glance. After all, Noah got drunk, Genesis 9:20. And Abraham was a liar, Genesis 12, verses 10 through 13. Moses murdered a man, murdered one of the Egyptians. Remember, that's why he had to flee, Exodus 2:11 to 15. Samuel's kids were rotten, 1 Samuel 8, 1 through 5. I'm not going to write all these things down. You're just going to have to take notes. There's too many to put up here on the text. It would cover up the whole video. All right. James and John had tempers, Luke 9:51 to 56. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, Matthew 26, 69 to 75. Plenty of examples of people who let God down, but he used them to extent that we can't even imagine. Yet we can do all the things that they did. We can do all the things that Jesus did, regardless of our background. Paul, who persecuted Christians and was responsible for their death and imprisonment of many of them. And Paul said in Romans 3:23, everyone falls short of the glory of God. When we're judged by our own works, every single one of us would be disqualified from serving God. Okay, that's the commentary. There's so much good news when we look at this, when we examine this time of year. It's a time for reflection. How have we done this year? Have we served God well? Have we been kind to others? Have we witnessed? If you don't like to witness, now is the time to get out there. You can say hello, God bless you, whatever you want to say this time of year, and most people will tolerate it. Yeah, you're not going to get to the woke people. You're not going to be able to have anything to do with Satan's tight group. But the rest of the world that aren't part of that, you can witness to them. You can hand out tracts. Now would be a good time for that. In fact, next time I go back to my storage unit, I got to get some more. I'm out. I just have my bookmark tracts. I got to get some more. If I feel that if God gives me the need to give one of those away, I'll do it. I got to get another, about another week, and I'll go to the storage unit. You can buy them in bulk for next to nothing. $5 for a box of them. People that make these want them out there. Now I'm hoping that they're making money on them, but they're not charging a lot. Something that should be $40 or $50 we get for 5 or 10 or 15. Get tracts, have them. They serve two purposes. If you say, can I hand you this, and they take it, you say, if you open it up and you look here, you can talk to them about it and use it as your script. Have a second one so you can open it too with them. Make sure that they know. And then when they take it with them, tell them that you're going to pray for them. And do that. You don't have to have a name, but that might help. I mean, you don't have to know everything about this person. Get a first name. You can say, can I have a first name so I can pray for you? And do a list. I am contemplating having a prayer day. I just worked on a video asking you if you think it would be a good idea we could do that. I need to update my prayer list. I need a new one. I've got people on that I don't know if I'm supposed to be praying anymore. So we're going to try to do this a little bit more organized. And I'd like to have, I mentioned it in the video, but I'd like to have a live prayer. Once a week or once a month or something, just some kind of a regular basis. And I'm also wanting to know if you guys want to see me cooking. Yeah, I can drop ramen into boiling water, but I can cook camp chili and cornbread. I can cook, really good. It's not a cabbage stew. It's a cabbage casserole. It's got meat in it and all kinds of stuff. It's really good. Cajun spices. It's really good. All these things. I got to keep things to a minimum of like once every couple of weeks or something, because I have to buy up all the stuff for it and then keep it stored until I use it. So I got a plan. And I got to go to a real market because I can't get what I need from a Dollar General. Okay. It is Christmas season. Spend your money wisely. Even I would like to have contributions, but spend your money wisely. I'm not asking you to prep for nothing. Times are going to get bad. So even when you're buying gifts, if you've got a little brat like on Harry Potter, on the first one, well, he was on the first few, little brat at home, how many presents did I get for my birthday? Got you 36. 36? That's what you got me last year. And then the mother says, well, we're going to go into town and get you 2 more, or whatever it was. If you're a little brat, if you got kids like that, you had better get their attention and start weaning them off of that. Now, we understand you want to give to your kids, but giving them responsibility and the value of money is more important than any physical gift you could give them. And again, telling them the truth about Christmas, they can handle it. It's Jesus' birth, not Santa Claus, not polar bears. That was created by Coke as an advertising gimmick. A lot of this stuff. All right, now we do have Christmas movies, which are kind of fun, but you can tell them that these are modern versions of St. Nick. Tell them the Santa Claus you see in the movies doesn't exist. Now, if you want to see It's a Wonderful Life, or what's the one with Natalie Wood in it, the Christmas Story there, where he gets all the mail delivered to him. I mean, those are fun. Let them watch those. But just don't tell them that Santa Claus is coming down their chimney and giving them all kinds of gifts. Make sure they know they come from you and from friends and relatives. They should understand that. All right. Now, if you've got to teach the other way, then fine, they're going to learn that you're a liar eventually. Not a good way to start a relationship with your children. Yeah, I'm a little harsh on it, but the media and these big businesses are out there just promoting it to get your money. And I'm telling you, be saving your money. Keep it simple. I'm not going to give you the acronym, but you know it. All right. I'm going to do a little bit more in another video on the actual historical information. I'll talk about the pagan stuff, where it came from, and why we can just, if somebody asks you, was Christmas a pagan holiday? Well, it never was. But has it adopted pagan rituals? Yes. Is it today a pagan ritual? No. Most people that celebrate it today, frankly, don't even know why they're celebrating it, but a lot of people do know that it is the birth of Christ, and all this stuff is the pomp and circumstance to go with it. Remember, keep it simple. All right. I'm doing these every day, so this isn't going to be my last video before Christmas, so we'll talk again. You have a blessed day. Till we meet in the clouds. I'm going to shoot a little bit of my hike to my location. I heard some noise in here, but I think it was the deer leaving instead of them just looking around. We're in hunting season. They're a little bit skittish. Even though we're in a hunt-free zone in the state park. They did open it up for 2 days, so that set a precedent. It's foggy. It's actually clearing out a little bit. It was even worse. I came down here earlier and decided not to shoot because you couldn't see the parking lot. This is the public area. And if you have kids, you can bring them here. There's a number of kid areas where they can climb on stuff. A couple of days ago, this was under an inch of water. Not from flooding directly, just from too much rain. We've still got a front north of us, and we had a front, we caught the bottom edge yesterday. Big fronts, moving lots of water. Let's see, what do we got here? They got hikes. Okay, we do have eagles. I've seen them. Wood ducks, I've seen them. That's the turtles. I've seen them for sure. Yeah, there are snakes. I've seen a couple since I've been here, but nothing major. Woodpeckers. And herons. Yes, I've seen all these here, so you get a map of what the campgrounds look like. You can find these online as well. Okay, it's early. It's during the week. There'll be a few cars come in here. They park here and take the hike out there. You can see that there's a trail marker. Well, I'm heading to my swing over here. A lot of the wood is still damp. We can see the other side of the river over there. The river's right at the bottom. This is the boat ramp entrance here. I've only seen a few people use it all the time I've been here, so. There's also one on the other side, it looks like. You can wash everything off when you come out. And these are public areas, so these picnic tables and those little barbecues are there for everybody. And there's water right there, and other places I see them. Like I always say, come on out and enjoy the... It's not totally free, but it's about as cheap as you're going to get entertainment. State parks have a $5 parking fee. But if you do it often like I do, you buy an annual pass. And because I'm a senior citizen, I get it pretty cheap. Well, water looks about the same. It's moving pretty fast. That's why they don't want you swimming in it. I can hear cars off in the distance, so this is the edge of the park here, the river is. If you go north, there's a big bend in the river. That's the name for the park. Okay, I'm going to sit down and work out my lesson.